We got this one from the Post. Millennial Hillary Clinton smirks and nods as Chicago DNC crowd chants, "Lock him up." I enjoy the hypocrisy. Look at her. Look at her smile over here. Oh, joker face, Hillary Clinton. All right. First, let me just say that the criminal convictions against Donald Trump are completely fake. But Trump may end up in prison. The rumors going around are that Rikers is preparing for his arrival. He will likely be in prison. And on September 18th, he will be sentenced to 1 year. There's a lot of reasons for this. There are apparently numerous individuals who say they have sources saying that the judge wants to give him a year, that they're going to ask for a year. But then you also have, I think it was Benny Thompson or someone mentioned, there's a bill that would strip Secret Service protections from anyone who is sentenced to a year or more in prison. Some have speculated Trump won't go to jail. He'll be sentenced to prison, but on bail pending appeal, which is typical, or he'll get house arrest. I think prison. I don't see why they stop. Hillary Clinton says he was criminally convicted, but I will stress this. Trump was not actually legally convicted. End of story. Democrats are lying to you. It's what they do. Joe Biden led with the very fine people hoax at his speech, and Snopes debunked it. Trump was convicted of a misdemeanor charge, falsifying business records, the penalty of which is a small fine of some sort. The crime is upgraded to a felony only when it's for the purpose of concealing another crime. Now, in constitutional law, for someone to be accused of a crime, it must be adjudicated. It's called due process. When Donald Trump was charged under this falsifying business record statute, 34 counts, they claimed they were felonies because he did so to conceal a crime. The problem, that crime they claim was never proven in a court of law, and thus innocent until proven guilty. We can roll with the 4th, 5th, 6th Amendments. Donald Trump has been found guilty of no such crime. Simply asserting it does not make it true. A judge can say Trump is guilty of these crimes. It doesn't make it true. There must be backing legal jurisprudence. There is not. But Democrats are evil, despicable, spiteful, and stupid people. And I don't mean all at once. There's varying degrees of evil over here. Evil and stupid. So Donald Trump is not a convicted felon. You can't just say it. But I'll tell you this. Biden's a convicted felon because I said so. I never said that I represent a U.S. court of law. I represent the Timcast Freedomistan. You know what? Freedomistan court has ruled Biden guilty on 87 counts of child molestation over the evidence we saw in that book, Ashley Biden's diary. It's an absurdity. You got to have due process. You can't actually just claim someone committed a crime without actually going through the process. That's what they did with Donald Trump. Spare me your lies. Spare me your manipulations. But Hillary Clinton, evil as she has always been, the scumbag, brags about weaponizing the legal system to go after Donald Trump.
Donald Trump fell asleep at his own trial. And when he woke up, he made his own kind of history. The first person to run for president with 34 felony convictions. As Vice President, Kamala sat in the Situation Room.
They're chanting, "Lock him up." These people are psychopaths. I'm sorry, it's just true. Deranged, cult-like psychosis. So I bring you now, my friends, to I brought this up several times. The conversation, well, the Twitter exchange, the X exchange I had with the Krasensteins, because I strive to exemplify why these people are a cult. So, we had this tweet exchange with the Krasensteins, and I was criticizing Kamala's price controls. It's communism. And I think it was Brian. I don't know. They're liberals, and they come up so often because they do interact and respond, and I can respect that. And they're like, was it communism? Was it Marxism when Donald Trump did it? And I was like, yes. Thank you, and have a nice day. Yes. It doesn't change based on who did it. And the response, this is what they do. Michael Malice brings this up quite a bit. Michael Malice is not a Trump guy. Dave Smith is not a Trump guy. I think they are because we hold very similar worldviews, but I think I'm more of a realist in saying like, I try to be honest. I'm going to vote for Trump. I think a lot of these guys, with all due respect, I don't know about Michael or Dave or whatever. Dave and Michael, maybe not. But there's a lot of people claiming they won't vote for Trump, and they're gonna. Look, if I had to make a bet, I'd be willing to bet Joe Rogan votes for Donald Trump. Now, he said RFK is the only one to make sense, but, But anyway, Michael Malice brings this up, that if you're not a Trump guy and you criticize the Democrats, they only know how to respond as if you're a Trump supporter. Famously, Dave Smith was on Fox Business. I think he was on Kennedy. And he said, Joe Biden did this, this, and this. And the guy responds with, yeah, well, Donald Trump did this. And Dave's like, you're right. I don't like him either. He did the same things. What don't you get? They're a cult. It is a cult. Look at these lunatics screaming and cheering, driving the bus of this nation off a cliff in their pure sociopathic, narcissistic egoism. Egotism? Whichever word. Me, I can tell you this. Man, Donald Trump is bad for a lot of reasons. But I have always been in the space of stop making me defend Donald Trump. If you just told the truth, maybe we'd have a real argument. You say, Donald Trump falsified business records. I think so. It's a misdemeanor, though. I might be like, oh, maybe. He maybe he really did know about the Stormy Daniels payment and wasn't really allowed to do that. What's the end result? Nothing. It's beyond the statute of limitations, so it's no big deal. We can maybe settle something like that, but then they try and say it's a felony, go to prison, and I'm just like, now you're lying, okay? The very fine people hoax. I'm like, oh, come on. Trump spoke perfectly at that event. Please, Dave Smith can sit here, and he can criticize Donald Trump, and I can only go, well, yeah, you're right. That's true. Absolutely, because we're not a cult. I'll give you another example. To any Democrat who may find themselves living in this reality, but may find themselves watching this video, Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, and Donald Trump. There was a real primary, and Trump ended up winning. But Ron DeSantis did very well. Vivek did moderately well. Nikki Haley had Democrats crossing over, so I don't know if she counts. But the Trump v. DeSantis internal conflict was massive because the people voting for Trump are not in a cult. They are people who are like, we have very few options. Now, I would say this of, Michael Malice and Dave Smith. I don't know. Michael may more publicly say he's going to vote for Trump. I don't know. Dave Smith says no, but maybe. I don't know. I think he's saying no. However, a lot of the Mises Caucus guys, the Libertarian Party members, are now saying if it's the choice between Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, not anymore Biden, or Trump, they're voting for Trump. And they don't want to, but they're realists. That's where I'm at. I'm not one of these guys who's going to put on a MAGA hat and go to every rally and be like, Trump's never wrong. Like these fringe X accounts that just like live or die by Trump. It's like, dude, you are as scuzzy and weird as the far left, okay? But the right is not as big as the left. What I mean to say is the Republican Party is not as big as the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party outnumbers the Republican Party. There are many activists working to change this. The Republican Party lives or dies by the alliance they have with moderates. So, what is the right? You do have a culty faction of Trump supporters who, no matter what, will just suckle the teat of Trump, and it's cringe, very cringe. However, it's a much smaller amount than Democrats relative to their cult members. You then have, I don't know, it might be like 50-50, it might be 60-40, but you have a large contingent of people who are like, I'm going to vote for Trump. He's not perfect, but he offers up these things, and here's why I think he's better. And that's, I think, most prominent. Most of the prominent individuals speaking about voting for Donald Trump are not the cult members. And there are a handful of very prominent cult members, but they play well in the Trump cult, okay? I don't mean to call all Trump supporters cult members. I'm saying Trump has his base that views him as infallible. He really does. Everybody does. I'll say it now and I'll say it again forever. However, the Trump coalition, the people who are going to vote for him, it's a small faction of people who have that view that Trump can do no wrong. And it's largely prominent conservative voices, post-liberal and disaffected liberal voices coming together, recognizing, yeah, Trump did a lot of bad things here, and here, but you got to vote for him for these reasons. It makes the most sense, which is why I do feel like if you're a libertarian, if you're an anarchist or whatever, then you're probably going to want to vote for Trump. Now, I do think like Michael Malice may be of the position. Actually, I think he's going to be here this week. I think his position might be like, no, bring on Kamala. Just like let the system rip itself to shreds. And I'm like, well, 4 years of Kamala could certainly rip this country to shreds. And then, accelerationism perhaps. But I personally believe a lot of these people who publicly, are paying attention, libertarian types, they're going to be voting for Donald Trump. So let me stress, when you see these people screaming, lock him up, I can certainly say that if you were to come to me and say, should Hillary Clinton be in prison? I can give you a sound, reasonable approach as to why, yes, she should. And if you were to say, should Donald Trump be in prison? I can easily explain to you why, no, he should not. The lock him up chance, or the lock her up chance for Hillary Clinton, that I get. The Clinton Foundation's mysterious amount of donation, the Clinton Foundation, the Global Initiative, brought in a lot of money from foreign interests. I wonder what that was all about. And then when Hillary lost, it just stopped coming in. How about the email servers? What about her emails? And they say, who cares about her emails? The destruction of public records is a crime. Like, dude, come on. Joe Biden, let's talk about the Burisma scandal. I can get into every fine detail about this. Not the most well-versed, but well-versed enough. Donald Trump, nothing. That's why I say it's a cult. I can give you the reasons why Hillary Clinton is a criminal. I can explain to you what they've attacked Trump over and debunk why it's not correct. Hillary Clinton ran a private public server at her house. Now, by all means, we can argue, okay, well, we're going to ignore this. It's not that big a deal. Then why are they trying to go after Trump over the documents in his house? But those are classified. We don't even know what Hillary Clinton had on those servers, and her staff smashed phones with hammers. Double standards. Indeed. Well, Trump may end up in prison. Newsweek says Trump could be sent to jail immediately by Judge Merchan, legal analyst. Newsweek reporting this a few days ago. Judge Juan Merchan is due to sentence Trump in September in the Stormy Daniels hush money case. John Yoo, the law professor, pointed out that Merchan has ruled against Trump many times and could jail him as the sentencing at the sentencing hearing. Wu was appearing on America's Newsroom on Fox with host Bill Hemmer. He called Trump sentencing the story nobody's talking about and a surprise that'll hit in September. Bill, it's excellent you noticed how the calendar is working this way. Judge Merchan has ruled against Trump every opportunity he's had. Not correct. In the sentencing delay, Judge Merchan agreed to delay sentencing over the Supreme Court ruling. Now, it's going to get appealed. This may actually go to the Supreme Court again. The Supreme Court said you cannot use official acts as evidence of wrongdoing. Thus, this case in New York heavily relies upon Trump's official acts as president. Indeed, it does. So he's going to appeal this, and it may actually appeal to the Supreme Court, but they might lock him up anyway. I would not be surprised if they do. Quote, he could have exercised his discretion here to change the sentencing date, but instead, he's actually moved it closer to the beginning of absentee voting in my home state of Pennsylvania. My, oh my, I wonder why. Could you imagine what would happen if Judge Merchan sentenced Donald Trump to jail time, even though he's a first-time nonviolent offender? What if Judge Merchan even went crazier and said Donald Trump doesn't even get to stay out of jail while the case is on appeal? He has the power to actually order Donald Trump sent to jail immediately, although I expect he wouldn't. But this judge has used his discretion every time to try to force this trial in a political direction that will have an effect on the election. Indeed. You as a speaker at the National Conservatism Conference in Washington, he's the author of Defender-in-Chief, Trump's Fight for Presidential Power. It was Trump's lawyers who requested a delay in sentencing. They had sought to overturn the conviction. On May 30th, he was convicted, blah, blah, blah. It's all fake. Anybody who knows anything about it knows it's fake. Democrats are lying because that's what they do. Andrew McCarthy, prepare for Trump to be sentenced to prison on September 18th. Indeed, I agree. However, McCarthy says it's probable he will be sentenced to prison, but they will stay his jail time pending appeal out on bail. This way they get to say Trump was convicted and sentenced to prison, but they don't go far enough that may actually help Donald Trump. Fox News, McCarthy writes, to the surprise of no one, Judge Juan Merchan has yet again denied President Trump's motion that the judge recuse himself. Yada, yada. We get all of this. He was going to say on Tuesday, Merchan denied the recusal motion. We know. By the time he'd issued this letter this week, Merchan had weeks to mull over the Supreme Court's immunity decision and Team Trump's subsequent brief arguing that a guilty verdict should be tossed out. He told the parties to get ready for sentencing anyway. Obviously, Merchan had any intention of vacating the verdicts or of accusing himself, he would not have stuck to the sentencing date. I suspect that Merchan will rationalize that Trump, A, was not charged based on official presidential acts, and B, would have been convicted even if Bragg's prosecutors had not introduced arguably immunized evidence. Such a ruling might be wrong, especially on the latter point, but Merchan made so many outrageous rulings in this case that it would be foolish to expect him to change course now. In fact, my own view is that even more than the Supreme Court's immunity decision, another of its late-term rulings will bolster Trump's eventual appeal, Erlanger v. United States. There, the court reaffirmed that in criminal cases, important proof elements affecting the potential sentence must be found unanimously by the jury. Merchan, to the contrary, denied Trump the right to a unanimous verdict on the supposed crime, conspiracy to influence the election by illegal conduct, that Bragg alleged Trump was trying to conceal by falsifying his business records. That crime is what turned a misdemeanor into a felony and what allowed Bragg to get around the 2-year misdemeanor statute of limitations. And so I will stress this. They did not adjudicate that claim. You can't sentence someone to prison for something you just accuse him of without a jury trial. But this brings us to the main point. The New York prosecution of Trump was politics, not justice. That's why we call it lawfare. The prosecutors and judge are not concerned about whether convictions ultimately get thrown out on appeal. And it's not like Merchan is actually going to put Trump in prison. It is virtually certain that Trump will get bail pending appeal, so Merchan can appear to impose a stiff incarceration sentence without any real incarceration, at least for now, and probably ever. The objective here is to enable Vice President Harris and the media Democratic complex to label Trump a convicted felon sentenced to prison just weeks before Election Day, at a time when Americans will have already started voting in many states, not least the potentially decisive Pennsylvania battleground. Prepare for Merchan to deny Trump's immunity claim and strap in for sentencing on September 18th. They say this column has been corrected to reflect that Merchan said he would rule on president's immunity by September 16th, not August 16th. So I expect it. Now, this one's just a rumor. Shore News Network, I'm not familiar with this outlet, but they say Rikers Island reportedly preparing prison cell for former U.S. President Trump. I don't know if I believe it. Because the only source is Tom Saruga, and I don't know him. I don't know what his sources are, but he kind of just posts these sensational things. So I'll see it when I believe it. They say Twitter is buzzing thanks to Tony Saruga, who claims that sources have spilled the beans about Rikers making arrangements for Trump's arrival. Now, the reason why I say, I don't know, because this was reported quite a while ago. We know that Rikers has been preparing for Trump's potential incarceration. You don't need sources to tell you this. You just Google search it, and they've been preparing it for a long time. The framing of the post from Tony Saruga is to imply that they've just begun new preparations because in 1 month's time, Trump will be there. No, they've been preparing for this for a while now. We expected a sentencing back in July 11th, I believe it was. Was it 11th? Just before someone tried to shoot him. No. Yeah, was it something like that? Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, it was going to be like I think the 15th. Could be wrong. Was it? No, it wasn't the 15th, was it? I think it was before this. I can't remember. It was around then. I think it was the 11th. I don't know. But then it got delayed, and then someone tried to kill Trump. So New York Supreme Court New York tells Supreme Court to toss Missouri's long shot bid to block Trump's sentence. Indeed, it has already begun. The return fire. This is Missouri filing a lawsuit. This is AG Andrew Bailey filing a lawsuit claiming that New York is interfering in the election by trying to incarcerate Donald Trump. New York responded, and so this is 3 weeks ago, saying that they have no standing. New York can charge whoever they want, and the Supreme Court should do nothing. The Supreme Court absolutely should step in and shut the case down. 100%. If the Supreme Court is just and honest, they will review the case and say, you cannot convict someone without due process. Done. I hope they do it. I hope the Supreme Court steps in before sentencing and says, we hereby intervene and shut this down. Expunge, eradicate, squash, whatever word they need to use, legal term, I don't know. Quash, whatever. The idea that Trump was convicted of a crime that has never been proven in a court of law is laughably absurd. The Supreme Court should respond with, while the claim of election interference is difficult to measure, it is true that New York has convicted Donald Trump of a crime will be sentencing him to prison for a crime that was never properly adjudicated in the courts. Therefore, we say, no, this is not legit. I think it's likely the Supreme Court sits on their hands and says, we won't even hear this. We have nothing to do with it. New York is arguing Missouri has no standing. Standing is, what claim do you have to file your legal action? Missouri's argument is Donald Trump is running for the president of the entire nation, and a single state trying to put him in prison is interfering in that process. It's a tough argument. What if Trump actually did commit a crime, right? And a state was like, he's going to go to jail for it. What do you do? In this scenario, we are between the rock and a hard place. Going forward, every state need only falsely charge a candidate they don't like to interfere in the election, and the federal government's going to be like, you can't do anything about it. States can charge whoever they want. But then what if they say, no, you can't charge him, it is interfering? One state should not be able to stop a man from running for office for the entire country. Then what if another president in the future literally shoots someone on Fifth Avenue and then they can't charge him? Now, ultimately, I think we have a special case here, and the measured response of the court may actually just prove reasonable. If someone shot someone on Fifth Avenue, I mean, it's cut and dry. Like, come on. There's evidence of this guy doing it. People saw it. There's witnesses. You're going to jail. Sorry. In this instance, it's clear lawfare. Trump's immune in some regards because of his official duties as president. The Supreme Court even said so. Supreme Court may come down and say, Missouri is right that it's interfering in the election. The question then becomes not so much about the interference, but the veracity of the claim. I believe it's fair to say that any state has a right, has standing to sue if an election is being interfered with. The court will then determine whether or not the criminal case against the defendant actually interferes. In this regard, the Supreme Court can say, Missouri has made the accusation of interference. It is a fact. These charges will interfere. However, the due process errors or I don't know, what's the right word for this? The actions taken by New York defy the Constitution and the rulings of the Supreme Court. So we won't answer it should be this. Interference alone should not be enough to overturn a criminal case. Any state criminally charging a president is interfering. The question is, was a crime committed beyond a reasonable doubt that can be proven, or at the very least brought to trial, regardless of interference? If there is evidence beyond a reasonable doubt and a reasonable conviction, then interference is, sorry, have a nice day. If a presidential candidate did commit a crime and it's proven and a state criminally charges him, we say, yes, it's interference. However, the right to prosecute a criminal for acts outside of the official duty or whatever, fine. For Donald Trump, the question would be, did you interfere? Yes. The question then becomes, is the crime being charged an actual crime with real evidence? The answer then is no. Therefore, out the window. That's what should happen. I doubt it will. I hope it will. I think the Supreme Court is going to do nothing. But what more can be said? I am not surprised at the Supreme Court's actions and how they handle these things. Too many cowards in the Supreme Court. Alito and Thomas are based AF. The rest, I can't say much for them. But we'll wrap up this segment here, my friends. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show, share this video if you do like the work that I do, and become a member at timcast.com to make sure we can keep doing it. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Thanks for hanging out. Next segment coming up will be at 4 p.m. Harley Davidson has abandoned its woke DEI policies. This is called winning, my friends. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next segment.